Okay, so in this tutorial we are actually going to complete the rigging side of the shark, and then after that in the next video we're actually going to start looking at how to finally get the skin and the model to move with the rig. So two things we're going to learn in this video is well, actually the first one we already know, which is how to add constraints to the rest of the joints, which is going to be very simple. We're just going to be adding an orient constraint to the rest of the joints. But the next part is going to be now parenting controllers to other controllers so that the controllers follow each other as we move them along. And this is going to be dealing again with the outliner. So we're going to be looking at the outliner a lot now. And I went ahead and I renamed my controller, so you can see here I added the word shark in front of the controller and then GRP if it's a group. So that's the controller group, and then go inside of that controller. You'll see again I renamed that controller, or actually I should rename the controller as well to shark, not just the group. So that's something else that I'm gonna have to do on my own. And probably another thing you could do, because when we look at this, just like this, you're not really sure what this is. It just says shark left flipper 01 group, but you don't know if it's a group for what. So you could add here control as well. So CTRL, it adds more, but it tells you it's a control group. That's up to you, but again, that's dealing with namespace and how you want to set up your namespace. But just make it easy for everyone to understand it again. So let's go ahead and start working with orient constraints. See if we run into any issues that I can sort of fix here, so you guys can see how to fix stuff. So we're going to be dealing with orient constraints. We already saw how to use this. So with maintain offset, very quickly you can just select the controller. Notice here we're selecting the control, not the group. So select the controller, select the joint, and orient. And then now we can test this out, and that's going to move fine. Do the same thing, select the controller, select the joint, and then to repeat the last tool that we used, we can hit the shortcut key G. So just press G, and that's automatically going to do whatever it is we used last, which was an orient constraint. So it's like pressing this button. So you can see it already has that connection. Now check this out. This one is already hooked up, and this one is already hooked up, but look what's going to happen if I rotate this. Well, I think I have discrete rotate on. Let me turn that off. So if I rotate this tool, this controller, this other controller here, this one right here, should be following along, but you can see that it's not. And the reason for that is because this controller is not parented to that controller. Remember, we have the child and parent type of relationship, or for those of you who have the book, I talk a lot about this because it is important. It's the follower and the leader. So this is the child or the follower, and the parent is the leader. So we need to parent these in that order. So we're going to look at that afterwards. Okay, so again, let's go ahead and add our constraints here. So select the controller, select the joint, orient, select the controller, shift select the joint, hit G, and then let's test them out. Always test it out, make sure things are working. So you want to rotate this, and again, just make sure that this joint is moving with it. Don't worry about the next joint. And then you can zero this out, and it should go back to its default pose. So that's how you know things are working. So let's do the same here. select the controller, shift select the joint, press G to repeat the last tool, and that one's working fine. Do the same thing here, G. This is working fine. I can zero things out in the channel box, hit enter. Notice how it returns back to its origin. This is why we did the freeze transformation, because it was very important that we have the ability to move it and then have it go back to its origin. So again, let's go over here, select that controller, select the joint, hit G. Now don't worry if it's adding values in the translate, that doesn't really matter. So this is working. You can see when we do the Orient Constraint, watch, select that, select this, hit G. You see translate has some values, but it's okay because the Orient Constraint only deals with rotation, and you can see we have no values in the rotation, which is exactly what we need. Rotate this, test it out, zero it out in the channel box, and it works fine. Same thing here. So you can see this is all we're going to be doing. Test it out, works fine. Select that, G, works fine. And then lastly, I think that one's already working, the jaw controller. So again, don't get confused here. This is not the jaw controller. There's nothing in front of it. Because we moved the controller way out here, you could get confused and do a Orient Constraint from here to here. Now let's say we did that. I'm going to do that by mistake and show you how you can fix that. So select that, select this, hit G, select the controller. You're like, let me test it. Hey, it's not moving the joint. So because we have a constraint, we need to look into that. So select that controller and then hit F to find it. Let's see if we can find that. I think it's the constraint is on the joint, I believe. So let me try it on that one. Do a show all. So sometimes you don't see constraints, and the constraints are displayed in the outliner by this little red exclamation mark. So if you look down here, you can see our connection. It says jaw tip joint, and then so we have to look for that constraint. So it's not that one. I need to expand this one. So here it is, jaw tip joint Orient Constraint. So this is the constraint. So you can see here it has a little arrow and it's being connected to the jaw tip joint. So you know that this constraint, and you know it's a constraint because it says it here and it has the red thing, it's being connected to the jaw joint. So if I just come in here and hit delete, that orientation constraint has been deleted, so I can start over again. I can rotate this and you can see it's working normally, but now I need to adjust the constraint. So select the controller, select the joint, and add our constraint again. Now you have to delete the constraint. You cannot say whoops, I made a mistake, I added a constraint here, but I'm not going to delete it, forget about that. I'm going to add the correct constraint. If you add constraints, you're going to add two constraints to the same controller and they're going to fight each other. What happens when you add two constraints is that it shares the constraint by 50-50 instead of 100%. So you're going to see things not moving accordingly. So always double check in your outliner, make sure things are connected accordingly, and then test this out. You can see now it's moving the jaw joint, and I can zero this out and it should go back to its default, and it is. So let's test this out. I believe I covered everything. Did I do this side? Now the thing with this is you cannot mirror constraints. You actually have to do each constraint individually. So just gonna run through this because I trust myself right now. Should always test this out, but you know, sometimes you get a little bit cocky or whatever. You're like, yeah, I'm a badass. I'm just gonna run through this, and then at the end, you're gonna get some surprises. So hopefully, I run into some surprises so I can show you how to fix some. So that works. Again, I'm testing it here. Okay. And again, you can test this out. Now, some of these are not gonna work because the controllers are not following each other. So if I did this, you'll see joints pointing weird directions and you're like, gosh, it's not working. Well, that's because you have not, like I said, you haven't parented the controllers to other controllers. And the way to do that is, let's go right ahead. And so we're done with Orient Constraint. So I like to start off with the children, the little babies. So I'm gonna minimize this. So I have all my joints in there, and I have all my controllers over here, and I have groups. Okay, so let's take a look at this. It can get a little bit tricky here because we're dealing with group controllers here. All of these are group controllers that we created, and over here are the regular controllers that we have. So here's how this is gonna work. We need to parent this controller now. We're dealing with controllers, so I'm gonna hide the shark because we are done with the shark as a template. We only had them there to use them to know where to create our joints and how to adjust our controllers, but now that that's done, we need to focus on how the controllers work with other controllers now. So here's what we need to do. I have this group, and I know it needs to be parented to this one. Why that one? Because this one's going to be the main controller. If I move this controller, this one should follow, right? So this is, in other words, a parent, and this is a child. This is a leader. This is a follower. That's how you need to see it. So when we do parenting by doing Shift P, that's how we're going to be working with this. But because these are sort of special, we can only work with these in the outliner. So let's locate this controller here, and we can see that it's this group. So I'm going to open that, and I'm going to find this one, and that one is down here. Because these are group controllers, you have to be careful to not screw with the with all the zero values that we have here. So we did the group control method to avoid having values in there. So if you parent these the wrong way, you can actually have values now in the controllers, which you don't want. So the way to do this is to grab the group of the child. So here is the one I'm selecting. It's the group. This one needs to go parented to this controller, not the group. So here's what we're gonna do. We are parenting the group to a controller. Okay, so here's the group, here's the controller. So we need to grab this, and we're gonna manually parent it. So here's how to do that. We middle mouse, click, and drag it. You'll see this little plus sign. I'm gonna drag it inside of this control. Notice it says control, not group. So I'm gonna drag it in there. So now it placed it inside of this controller. So if I expand that and expand that, now you can see that this control is inside of that group. We already know that. But now this group is inside of that controller. So if I select this controller, watch this. now the upper controller moves with it. And so we need to continue to do the exact same thing, and I can zero this out. I can grab that one. That's how to check it. If you place it inside and you rotate this one up, the parent, click on the child and make sure that everything is still zeroed out. So you should be able to rotate this and rotate that, and that should still remain how you left it. So I can zero the parent, I can zero the child. That's how you know things are working, and they should always return back to their original spot. So I'm going to do the same thing down here with these two. Let's find them. So that one is the group. So that's okay. That is going to be the child. This one up here is the parent, so I need to expand that because I'm going to be placing the child inside of the controller, not the group. So grab the child, group, and move it inside of the parent control. And let's test that out. I'm going to move the parent, make sure that child moves, and I should be able to move the child independently. Again, I can zero the parent and the child. That is how they work. Now, working this way, the opposite, because these are the child, and this is, so we know that the shark moves its tail this way, right? So this is the father, this will move this one will move this one will move that one, and so on and so on. This one will move this one will move both of these. So now working in reverse, because now we're working with the child first, this now becomes a child to this one. So let's take a look at how we're going to do that. So let's find the group, and then I know that I saw that shark tail 4 was that controller. So let's find this one. Tail upper needs to go inside or parent it to that one. So I'm going to place it in there. Now if I select that one, that should move everything. You can see that it does. Now I need to do the same thing to this one. So both of these don't connect to each other. They connect to the parent to follow the joints here in the opposite direction. So now this one, the group, needs to go inside of that control tail 4, which is also this controller. So grab it, middle mouse, click and drag until you see that box over it, and release it in there. Now let's try them out. And that now works beautifully. So I can move that away. Should be able to move this one away, move this one away, move this, pose it however you want. And then you should still be able to move everything together. And we can select all the controllers, zero everything out, and boom, back to its original spot. So now let's go ahead and keep working this way. So this one's kind of fun because this is not a group control. This is just a regular controller. So this one will be the child of this bigger one. So we can easily do that. So select that one. You could drag it if you want it. Just middle mouse click and drag. It works the same way. So now that's the parent, and that should move everything. Or I can do the shift P to parent. So again, this is going to be a child, that's going to be a parent. So child, shift select it, press P, and watch what's going to happen. Again, that sort of like we did it manually, but now we did it with the shortcut. So that should move everything behind it. This should move like that, and zero everything out should still work, and leave everything back at its original spot. So again, let's work with this child, parent, P. Let's try it out. that works fine, except these little ones we have not worked with these, so let's go ahead and let's work with these. So this one is a group. Remember, a group works differently. So here is a controller. I need to expand this so the group, the child group, goes inside of the control, and then I can test that out. That works. This works. Let's do it to the other side as well. Let's locate them first, so it's down here and that one. Expand the parent, grab the child, put it inside of the controller, and that's it. Now I need to grab this controller, follow the joints, it's pointing to this one, so I need to put it inside of that controller. So this is going to be a child, that's going to be a parent. So let's take a look here. Let me look for it in the outliner. So the group, grab the group and put it inside of that one. Okay, so I keep losing it. So this one, group, goes inside. Remember, if it's a group, it goes inside of a control. So shark tail 1, I believe it's the right one. Let's test it out. And that should move both of these, and it is. So we still got to work on the right side, so let's go ahead and do that. That looks broken. Alright, that's perfect. That's what I wanted to see. Why? Oh, I haven't zeroed this one out, so okay. Grab this one, the group, place it again into that shark tail 1 control. So let's middle mouse, click and drag it inside of that one. So if I start expanding this controller, I should see all the other controllers. So this is like the main mother load, and then it starts going to the children of other children. So that's what we have working here. So as you expand this, you can see how this one, this little one, is inside of that one, which is inside of that group, which is inside of this one. So you can see how this is moving up the chain as we're moving up. So that is what we're doing here. So the mid and this tail 1, now this one becomes a child to whatever joint is pointing to, which is this one. So let's go ahead, grab that controller, grab the parent, and P to parent it. And now this one drives everything behind it except that upper fin, because we haven't worked with it yet. So let's work with it right now. Grab the group, it's the mid one. Okay, so fin. Okay, so I'm still missing this one. So if I move this one, that little fin is not working. So again, don't panic. Let's say I forgot about that little controller. I'll show you how you can do that. So I'm going to grab this one, the parent, and put it into that mid controller. So I'm going to grab this one, place it in the control. So now when I move this one will follow. But notice that this little one isn't following yet. So I need to parent this one to this one. But both of these are using the group control method. So let me expand this and find it. So there is this one. I need to expand that one so I can find the control, find the group, and then very easily, remember, don't parent group to a group. You have to parent a group to a control. So this one goes inside of that fin 1 control. So try to follow the logic here. This is why rigging is fairly technical now. So these tutorials are very important to follow the logic. So that follows that one now, and then these follow those, and then you should be able to see that everything behind that moves with the rig, and you can test it by selecting all these controllers together here at the tail, and you should be able to get that nice tail whipping action, and then zero everything out and it goes back to its default. So okay, let's move along here. I know it's a lot, but you gotta use your brain here. That's why, you know, if you want to be a rigger, you can make pretty good money here. And you know, it's not a joke. Rigging is in demand. Rigging, you know, there's not a lot of people that can think like this, so practice it. I didn't know it. I had to practice it on my own because a lot of this stuff seemed kind of out of it, and I didn't have a good teacher to teach me this stuff. So hopefully you guys can see how all this outliner is very useful. So how you parent things, how you constrain things. So check out my tutorials if you're not too familiar. And this shark mid control, you can see, is connected to the root joint. So that means this controller is going to go to this controller. So very easily, since these are not groups, I can quickly just select that controller, select the root, and hit P to parent. Now as I move that one, everything will move with it, except the ones that I haven't worked with. So let's go over to these left side fins. So the group will go inside the controller. So this goes in here, and then this group should go inside of that root control. So I'm going to manually, so inside of this group I have both of these, so that's why I'm just going to middle mouse click and drag them into the shark root control. And then as I move this root, I should move my flippers now, and it is. And then I should be able to move that and move this, and I can grab everything and zero everything out, and it does. Now the last right flipper here, so let's work with individual flippers. So I know that these two, and you know you did it right because it's kind of like a puzzle, you know. As you go and you start getting to the last pieces, you should see your last controllers and groups being left outside. So expand the first one, which is going to be that parent. Grab the child group, put it inside of the controller, not the group. That's why I always say test these out. Sometimes you'll place a group inside of another group and it's gonna break stuff. So you're gonna have to make sure you save previous versions so you can go back, or make sure you always test it out. You know, rotate it, zero things out, make sure they go back to its origin. And then lastly, grab the group, and it's connected to the root joint, so grab it, move it inside of the root, the root controller. And lastly, I should see everything's working fine except the head and the jaw. So let's go ahead and undo that. Grab the head control, child. I can even do it here. Control select the root, hit P, and then as I move the root, the head will move with it. And lastly, the jaw is connected to, not the root, the head controller. So I'm going to grab the jaw group and place it inside of the head controller. So I'm going to open this until I see the head controller. There it is. Grab the jaw control group. Remember, it's a group. Groups can only go inside of controls. So if the head was a group, I would have to open that group until I saw the controller. So keep that in mind. Group inside of a head control. And notice we should be left with only the root of everything. So you're left with root joints when you're dealing with joints, and when you're dealing with controllers, you should be done with root control as well. So root joints, root control, that's how you know everything comes back to its original creation, which is the root of everything. So now we are done with our rig. This is a complete setup. So I can grab that. Let's test it out. I can move my shark. All the controllers move with it, right? Now if I turn this on, obviously it's not going to move the model because we haven't attached it yet. So don't worry about the model yet. That's going to be in the next video. I can move the shark. I can rotate them a little bit to the side. I should be able to grab these, rotate this to the side, and it works fine. Should be able to grab these, move them, move that, and everything should work fine. I should also be able to I'm gonna make sure I turn off joint selection so that I don't accidentally select a joint. I should be able to select, I can even open the mouth and everything, so that's cool. I should be able to select all my controllers and just hit 0 on translate and rotate, and it should go back to its original default pose. So let's try that out. 0, enter. And what do you know, gee golly whiz, it did. So I'm a little out of breath. I know this tutorial is long, but it's necessary. It's very important on how to rig. So again, if you found this tutorial very useful, which they're very important, they're very technical, so watch them over and over until you understand it. So hopefully you learned a lot, and the next video we're finally going to make some magic. We're going to start being able to grab a controller and move the model now. So subscribe to my channel if you enjoyed it, and I will catch you when I drink some water, 'cause see ya.